everybody and welcome to OBS Obsessed. My name's John Lacey and today I'm here to talk to you all about OBS scenes and sources. So we are going out live to all the various places, so let me know in the chat where you're watching from. I have had some technical issues this morning which is incredibly annoying and it's kind of thrown my confidence a little bit. I'm just going to do something in the background here just to make sure that I've got the things that I need. And I've made a mistake with that already, so that's awesome. But if you are out there watching, let me know where you're watching from. It would be great to hear from you. I want to put I've got a little clock. I don't want to put it there. I want to put it somewhere else. The field monitor. And then I want to go back to here. And I want to turn off studio mode. And I want this to actually be on the prompter. That would be awesome. Okay, so I think I'm okay. I'm in the right place now. Let me just make sure that I pressed one other button to make sure I can bring your chat comments in over here. I'm gonna put something in the chat just to make sure that's actually working. Okay, awesome. So, hello to Saeed, who's watching from Germany. Great to have your company today. So yes, I must admit I had a bit of a weird conflict with my camera this morning. It was being used by the Elgato Camera Hub software and that was stopping it from being used directly in OBS, which is incredibly annoying. But I think I've sorted that out now. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about OBS Studio, and this is the subject of this show, so you're probably used to that already. But specifically, we're going to be looking at the sources that we have available to us. So if you don't know, OBS Studio is this magical piece of software that you can download from obsproject.com. It's available for Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. And, you know, you'll get something a little bit like this when you first get it straight out of the box. So we're going to talk about the scenes and the sources today, the things that we have available to us by default, and then we'll talk about maybe extending those even further in a moment. But let me just bring up my portable version of OBS so I can talk you through some of the things that we'll be looking at today. And I hope you had a great week. Like I said, some technical issues this morning, which is always fun. But anyway, that's fine. We're good now. So if I go into OBS and let me show you the full screen. So this is OBS Studio. This is sort of a second portable version I'm using today. So what we're going to do, we're going to focus mostly down on here in the sources section. So we've got a whole bunch of different things that we can use here. And these include the application audio capture, audio input capture, audio output capture, browser sources, which are really nifty. Color source, display capture, game capture. I don't really do a lot of gaming, so I'm not the person to ask about those kinds of things, but it's worth noting that they exist. And images, image slideshows, you know, screen sharing, media, all of the things today. So I just wanted to note, first of all, I'm really going to be focusing on the ones that come with OBS by default. So everything except for this one. This one's a little bit different and it just comes up because I've installed VLC Media Player on my computer. The great thing about this is it'll actually give you the ability to set up playlists really easily in your OBS Studio setup. So that can be really, really nifty. All right, so let me just go back over here. It's kind of annoying how one little thing can go wrong and it can just completely send you off, but that's okay. Let's not worry about that. Let's keep going. I guess the other thing too, and I mentioned this a little bit in the last show, but the scene collections are different ways of organizing the scenes. So if you've got different projects, if you've got different podcasts, if you've got different video shows, if you've got different brands, for example, this is the place where we can organize those. So here in this portable version, you can see I've got my first scene collection and podcast. At the moment, the podcast one just has a bit of a promo for my podcast builder presentation muscle, but let's go and create a new scene. And let's just call it sources for today. And now in OBS Studio, in the left-hand side, and again, you can move these docs around. So if you've put this somewhere, if you've closed this, just go up to the docs menu and pick up scenes again and bring that back in. And of course, you can always sort of drag this back into position wherever you wanted to have it. We'll do that for the sources panel as well. But let's talk about some of the options that we have available in terms of our sources. So we'll talk about the audio ones a little bit later. I'll start with the visual elements of this today. So first of all, this is the most basic, I think, in some ways. It's called color source. and we can create our color source. We can give it a new name, and I will call it, I don't know, aqua, for example. Click OK. You've basically only got 3 options here. One is for the color, one is for the width, and one is for the height. So again, I can adjust this to any size I want, but I'm going to go in and select a different color, and I'll pick this shade of bluey green. Again, if you're somebody that has sort of design colors and you know what you're playing with, you've got the hue, saturation, value options. We've got the RGBA options. The alpha is really cool because it can actually make things transparent, so you can actually build in layers. And we've also got the HTML hex code there as well. So we can use any of those color options. We can click on it, and there we go. We've already gone from a blank scene to something with a bit of color in there. And again, you might want to actually come in and maybe make this a little bit smaller. So instead of a height of 1080 pixels, let's make this, I don't know, 400 pixels. And then we could probably reposition that at the bottom of the screen and maybe make that a bit of a banner, or at least the background of a banner. In fact, I might even make it 200, make it a little bit smaller. And you can literally sort of design and build things out in OBS in this fashion. But I guess in some ways, if you already have assets from other pieces of software that you want to work with, that's also a thing that we can do. So we can, for the moment, I'm just going to click the little eye icon just to toggle the visibility of that one, because I don't really need that at the moment, but it's good to know that it's there. All right, so let's talk about images. So the great thing about images is, well, I mean, there's a lot of different great things about images, but the thing about images is that we can insert an image. And I know that doesn't sound terribly exciting, but this does support a number of different file formats in terms of images, including animated GIFs. So if you want to actually bring in an animated GIF, you can do that. Obviously, all the standard disclaimers about intellectual property and copyright apply here, but we can bring in an image with a transparent background if it's a PNG or a GIF, which again can help with us actually stacking our layers and our elements of design as well. There are a few different ways that we can actually add an image. So I'm going to go to the sources. I'm going to hit the plus sign. I'm going to go to image in here. I'm going to give this a name. And it's a really good idea to give your sources a meaningful name. That said, I'm not even sure what image I'm going to use. So let me just, I started a folder just before the show specifically for this purpose. So let me just find out what it was and where it is. Okay, well, I guess, like, first of all, I'm just going to call this one FOMO. You'll find out why in a moment. And from here, we'll click OK. There's not a lot of options here. Like, it's literally the location of your file, whether you can unload the image when not showing, which you could do, but I don't think there's a lot of point to doing that. And if we apply the alpha in the linear space, so if you wanted to work with that transparency there as well, you can do that. But I'm just going to go and I'm going to go find my files, and I might even copy that path and just do this on the screen so I can find it. So I'm going to grab my FOMO image. You'll see that this is actually pretty small, which is fine, but it is literally an animated GIF. So I'll just describe what's happening on screen for those of you that may not be seeing this. But essentially, there's an Amazon listing. The word FOMO pops into screen, and I pop up and I give myself a face palm. So there's an example of something that you can do with that. And I guess the other thing too is we can grab the corners, we can resize these things, we can make them larger or smaller. If you do want to actually crop this, you can hold down the Alt key on Windows and drag that in. And that will sort of crop that as well. If you find that you've been playing with this too much, the best thing to do is actually right click on it, go to transform, and just go to reset transform, which is Control R on Windows as well. And that'll sort of put it back to where it was and the dimensions it was as well. So I'm going to toggle the visibility of that one because we probably won't need to see that all the time. That'll be kind of annoying. But what we can do as well, and I often forget this is a thing, but I might even bring back my aqua color band there at the bottom of the screen. I can also drag and drop images directly onto OBS. And I often forget this is a thing, but I'm going to try it. Oh, I've got 2 images selected, an image and a video. I don't really want to do that right now. I'm just going to drag and drop my image file here. It's probably a little hard to see actually on this screen because I use that aqua color. Let me change that aqua color to something a little bit darker. In fact, I can literally do that by dragging this one down and go okay. But essentially, I've got my little John Lacey icon here in the corner. So that's another way of actually bringing images in. It's very quick, especially if you've got a folder with all the image assets that you want to build with, you can do that. The one thing I probably would recommend is that you sort of come in here and either right click or go F2 to rename this and just give them meaningful names, because the thing is you can use a lot of different sources in OBS Studio, and this can get really busy, and it's really important that you describe these things in a way that will make sense to you later on when you've forgotten what you've actually put together. So that's really important. And I guess, like, if we go back to just this scene here with me, so I've this is the OBS Obsessed John Only scene, I think is what I call it. And it's literally just me in the middle of the frame. I've got a rounded border with a bit of a gradient, and I've got the OBS Obsessed logo at the top, sort of breaking that border. And this is actually a number of different images that are combined together. And I think if you go to my YouTube channel at Learn Livestreaming, I'm pretty sure I did, I think it was a stream for the video and live streaming show with Sam Proof, where I sort of talked you through the way I was building this. But it's actually a number of different images. And the great thing about this is that I can sort of layer these. So, you know, there is actually, like, I know it looks probably all black to you, but there is actually a cutout around the outside of this that is literally black. So if I were to change the underlying color, let me just do that really quickly in OBS. And again, you won't be able to see this, but I'm just going to change this to a gray. You'll see that center section is it's a color source, which again I showed you earlier, but because there's sort of a black image with the center cut out of it going on top of that, it sort of makes that space available for that. So let me just change that back. And the thing about that, and I guess it's probably worth going back to our screen share so I can just talk you through this, but let's actually bring back our FOMO image. I'm sort of conscious of the fact that everything is very dark here, so I'm going to actually add another color source, and we'll just call it gray BG for gray backgrounds. And I'm just going to let it default to whatever that color that is. So the thing about this is the layers are very important. So if you're, if you just added something and it's covering everything else, you need to change the position of these. So whatever is the first in the list is on top of everything else. So in this case, we've got the gray backgrounds. We really want the gray background underneath everything else. So I have a couple of options here. I can either click and drag this to the bottom, which is quite effective in this example. Or the other thing I can do is we have these up and down arrows. So move source up, move source down at the bottom of the sources panel in the dock there. And I can just sort of move those around until I get what I'm looking for. So it's really important that you think about the order of these and the layering too, because at the moment, like if I make this FOMO GIF a little bit larger, it's appearing above the dark gray background banner thing at the bottom of the screen, which might be what you want, but it might not be. And again, if I just move this down one, you'll see then the banner is appearing on top of that. So again, those are just some things to keep in mind. Some of the other things that are really useful in terms of positioning, and you can probably already see this if you're watching this on the screen, is when I've selected my source, and in this case it's the FOMO GIF, you can actually see the space around this image, and it's telling me that there's 223 pixels from the top, 428 pixels from the right, 268 pixels from the bottom, 445 pixels from the left. So again, if we right click on this, we can go into our transform options. The transform options are really cool. They give you a lot of different things that we can do. But we have things like fit to screen, which will just fill the space. And again, I'm going to go Control Z to make that go back to what it was previously. But also even just going to the transform menu and going center to screen, center vertically, or center horizontally. So I'll go center to screen, which is Control D. And now you'll see that the top and bottom and left and right, well, the top and bottom are the same amount of pixels in terms of that margin there. So it has centered that for me. Okay, so Saeed is mentioning here a great little tip. Control plus up, Control down for changing the layer of a source. Okay, cool. So let me try that. Let me move this FOMO underneath here. And you'll see that this banner is obscuring the bottom of the screen. So if I go Control up cursor, yep, that works brilliantly. That's really useful to know. Thank you for that, Said. Okay, cool. I'm going to turn off that FOMO GIF because it's kind of annoying me at the moment. But there you go. You can see it's pretty easy to bring in some images, some graphical elements, and actually bring these onto the screen. So I'll talk more about other types of media in a second, but I think what we should do, let's go to the add source option. And we've got the ability to add text. So on Windows, this says text bracket GDI plus, close bracket. On Macs, on Linux, this will work a little bit differently. You won't get as many options. And if you are interested in sort of seeing the differences between the Mac and the Linux and the Windows version, there's actually some great documentation on obsproject.com. But I'm going to go down to the sources. I'm going to hit that plus sign. I'm going to click on text GDI. Again, as per always, it's going to ask me for a name. So I will call this title text and I will click OK. All right, so now we've been given the option to put some text in. So I'll say, I'll call this scenes and sources. And at the moment, it's sort of defaulting to Arial in a specific color at a specific size. We've got a whole bunch of different options. Again, a lot of these will be specific to Windows. So if you're not seeing these on Mac, you might need to do different things. But here in the text transform, I've got the ability to make this uppercase. I can make this lowercase. I can make this start case, which seems to be the capitalization of each word, the first letter of each word. But I'm going to go back to none. There's the ability to make this text vertical. So if you want it to go down the side, you can do that as well. We can change the color here. We can change the opacity. So 100% is completely solid. If I go down to 0, it will be completely transparent. And you may have your reasons for wanting to do something in between. We've also got the ability to use gradients, which is really, really fun. So if I pick a different color, at the moment, this is sort of a gradient starting at the top with the white and blending into the blue. Again, probably not the best color combination here for us at the moment. So I'm going to try something different. For the first color, I might even try making this an orange color. Sort of orange fading into blue. I don't know that I love that from a design perspective, but it's something you could play with. So we've got the background color. So again, do you actually want a background color? You could potentially do that as well if you wanted to. And the background opacity is sort of set to 0. So it's transparent by default, but we could bring that in. And we could make that more of a solid block. So that's something you could do as well. We've got some alignment options for left, center, and right within our little source here, and also vertical alignments. And we've got the ability to outline this as well, which I kind of think usually makes this pretty hard to read, but it just depends on what you want to do. But in this case, I've sort of got a white outline of size 13, and that actually doesn't look terrible. I could live with that. That's very nice. And again, we've got opacity options for that as well. But I guess for most of us, probably what we want to do is just type in our text. We do have the ability to read this from a file. So if you were doing something dynamic, if you're working with a chatbot, you could do that too. Which reminds me, I don't think I actually opened up my chatbot. So let me do that in the background while I think of it. In case anybody needs any assistance with the chatbot, let's log in there. But be that as it may, so we go to the font options, we can go to select font, and this is where you can pick the different fonts that are on your computer, you can adjust the sizes, you can use some font variants, so if you want it bold or italic or whatever. I'm a big fan of sort of the Open Sans fonts, so I will pick one of those, maybe semi-bold would be good. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller because it's currently going off the screen, so if I do maybe, I don't know, let's just do a 200. We've got strikeout effects, which will put a line through your text. I don't know that that's particularly useful for most things. And an underline, which again, I don't know if that's particularly great. We have different writing systems. And again, I'm just going to leave that on any. But let's click OK. You'll see that that's going a little bit smaller. I must have hit something I didn't intend to because I'm actually getting semi-bold condensed. So I guess that, yeah, so that's the thing. I picked the wrong font there. So let me just go to semi-bold, open semi-bold, and there we've got our text. Again, I can move this around. I could, I guess the other thing I didn't show you with the images is if we do right click on this and we go to transform, we've got the option to edit transform, which is Control E on Windows. And here you can actually use a whole bunch of different options to position this as well. So if you've created maybe documents and like an image file, which has all the different components of your stream overlay, and you want them in very specific places, you can certainly use this to use numerical values. So if I go, I don't know, 200s, I'm actually on the wrong, I haven't actually selected the right. Okay, this is a great learning opportunity actually, because if you look over here, you'll see that it's currently telling me that I've got the gray background selected. So when I make that change, it's moving the gray backgrounds. What I want to make sure I do is actually have the title text selected. Again, it'll tell me over here that that's selected, and then I can go right click and transform and edit transform. And again, I can probably change these options. In fact, the great thing about this is I can sort of see the numbers, the pixel values around this as to where it's already positioned. So if I want to go, okay, maybe I want this somewhere a little bit further up, I might go to 100 pixels. Or if I want it quite a way down the screen, I might go 800 pixels. In fact, that might be 820, maybe 840. And you'll see that that's actually part of that gray banner bar at the bottom now. But it is coming up quite close to the John Lacey logo. So again, I might even go 880. And then I'll adjust the position, make it a little bit left, we'll go 100. So there we go. We've actually got those things together and they're in position. So the great thing about this is if I wanted to make sure that the banner, the logo, and the text of the banner were all together, what I can do is I can actually, I'm going to rename this because originally I called it Aqua, but let's just go right click and go rename, and we'll call this banner background. So now we've got the banner backgrounds, we've got the logo, we've got the title text as well. So I've held down the control key and I've selected each one of those. Now in the sources list, if I right click, I can actually go to group selected items. It'll ask me for a name for this, so I will just call it banner. And the great thing about this is if I wanted to toggle this on and off, I can actually do this with a single click or a single keyboard shortcut. In fact, I'll show you how to do that in a second. But right now, if I click on the little eye icon in the list, you'll see that it disappears. And if I click on it again, it brings it back. But it actually brings back those three separate sources. But we've grouped them together in a way that makes it a little bit more meaningful. And now if I actually go and create a new scene, so again, you should give this a more meaningful name, but for today's purposes, I'm just going to call it scene 2. And now if I wanted to actually go in and to bring in those elements, I can actually go plus, add a group, go to add existing, and bring that in as well. Okay, that's a great thing as well. So I'll talk about that in a second, Saeed. I think it's a really great point. But before we do, if we go to our file menu and we go to our settings and we go to hotkeys, and what I'll do, because there are probably, I don't know, actually there aren't that many of them, so I probably could find this from the list. But because I know I've named my group banner, I can search for banner. And maybe here I can actually click where it says show banner backgrounds. Okay. So in this case, I want the show banner and the hide banner options. So if I go Control Shift, that's clearly something that my computer is already using. This is the joy of actually finding unique keyboard shortcuts. But if I go Control Shift / on my on my keypad there, and I'm going to do that for all of these for the scene 1 and scene 2. It is saying that there's it's going to be shared, but I don't think that's going to be a problem here. So I'm going to put in my keyboard shortcut. I'm going to click OK. And now if I go Control Shift and the slash on my number pad, that'll toggle that on and off as well. And we can do that with all kinds of different things. And I'm pretty sure if I go to scene 2, that'll work there as well. All right, awesome. So often that's a great way of going. The other thing that is quite useful for any kind of stream is to have a stream deck, which has physical buttons that you can program to do a lot of this stuff. But let's check in with Saeed because he had this really great point here. Saeed writes, I'm a fan of locking every source I'm not actively working on. It's too easy to accidentally select the wrong one with the mouse otherwise. This is totally true, and that's a great point. I'm just going to go back to our scene over here. So the thing is, it's very easy to sort of click in and, you know, maybe I'm here and maybe I'm like, oh no, I've moved my gray background. I never want to move my gray background. I've decided that's something I want to stay in place because it's filling the entire screen. If we go down to the gray background in the sources list and actually click on this lock icon. Now, if I click through all the elements here, and even if I select gray background from the list, I physically can't move this. So I can't accidentally move this. I can't intentionally move this either unless I deselect that lock icon, but that can be really, really useful because it's, as Saeed mentioned, it's super easy for you to accidentally click on the wrong thing and just move it out of the way or, you know, accidentally delete it or whatever. So you can certainly do that as well. Again, if I bring in the FOMO GIF again, I literally can't select it. I can't move it from here. So if you've got your scene in a position where you think it's working really well and you don't want to make a lot of changes, that's a really, really good thing to do. All right, awesome. Okay, so a lot of those, I guess the other thing that I do want to mention, and let's actually just go into our scene 2 for this. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to bring in my color source and I'm going to grab that gray background again. And let's just control down. Oh, I brought it all the way down because I've really only got the two things in this scene. So one is the group and one is the background. So that's cool. That's awesome. And again, I won't want to move this. So I'm literally going to just lock that in place. So the other thing I kind of wanted to show you here is that we've got the ability to include an image slideshow. And I've done an entire video on this in the past, but I'll just show you this briefly. So we can go and add a new image slideshow from our sources menu. We've got a whole bunch of different options here. Most of these I probably wouldn't worry about too much, but we do have sort of the bounding size aspect ratio. So if you have a specific size that you want to work with, you can change that. But here we've got the image file. So we can add a file or we can add a directory. I'm going to go in and add a directory that I prepared earlier. And this is just something that I created a really long time ago. I have a weird feeling a lot of these are out of order, so I probably need to go in and actually do this properly. But when it comes to our image slideshow options, we have a few different slide modes. So we've got automatic and we've got manual. So if you wanted to actually just start at the beginning and work your way through, go with the manual option. And you'll see here, when I've got this selected, I can actually literally just go click on this forward icon and it'll show me the second slide and then the third slide and the fourth slide and so on and so forth. I can also use the previous in playlist as well option. So I can do that there. But if I go back into my properties, we do also have that automatic option. That was kind of what was turned on when I first created this. So it's literally just sort of fading between these. And we can adjust the transition. So maybe if I want this to be a cut, you won't get that gradual fade, which I kind of like the fade, but let's try a different option, swipe, so that you get a visual swipe that goes between those. Again, that can be quite fun. But we can change the time between the slides, and this is all in milliseconds, and the transition speed as well. So often, if I've got a collection of images that I want to use as a background in OBS, I will put a fairly long transition speed and a long time between slides. and make it quite gradual and just sort of fade those between each other, which can be really, really cool. The slide option is in there as well. We can do that. We can choose whether to loop them, do it once, or do it by random. So we have those two options. And again, I'm probably not going to dwell on this too much today, but I do have an entire video on the Learn Livestreaming channel about this, and it can be really useful. The thing is, if you do have a PowerPoint slide deck or something of that ilk, you do need to sort of export those as images, and it's really easy to do that actually. So again, check out that video if you want to know how to do that. But the thing I kind of encourage people to do is to think outside of the square a little bit, because you can certainly use these as slides, and that's a very, very popular thing that people do. But you could use these for promotional messages. You could have these as call to actions. You can actually go in and insert transparent GIFs that have nothing on them in between this list. So that way you can have something pop on the screen, then nothing, then wait a while, then something else will pop up on the screen. So you have those options, and they can be really, really cool. All right, so that's our image options. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else visually outside of videos? And I'll talk to about videos in a second in this list. We'll come back to the browser source. The browser source is really awesome. All right, so let's just talk about videos briefly. So if you have pre-recorded videos that you want to share, you have a couple of options. Again, I guess the main one here is media source. So if we go into add a new source and we select the media source option, I'll just call this one videos, click OK, and I can go and find my file. In this case, and I just wanted to mention too, we were talking about GIFs before. I have this little funny MP4 video, and I did save it as a GIF somewhere, but I couldn't find it this morning. But I'll just bring this in quickly and show you what this looks like. In fact, it's kind of the same thing that appears on that FOMO video, just me popping into frame, doing the face palm, and some animated lines pop up in front of me. That's a really funny one to work into work meetings. I can tell you that for nothing. All right, so we can actually come and grab a file. This could be a video file. This could be an audio file. If you want music playing in the background, if you want a sound effect, you can do that as well. We can choose whether to loop this or not. So if I loop this, I can go okay, and it'll just keep popping up forever until I tell it otherwise, which in this case is probably incredibly annoying. So let's turn that off. And I'll just do that. It'll play through once and then it'll go away. So we can restart when the source becomes active. That can be quite useful. So if you have like a promotional video and every time you switch to that scene, you want it to start at the beginning, that can be a good thing to do. Show nothing when playback ends. So if I turn that one off and I play this again, you might have to toggle the visibility, turn it back on. This is kind of not a great example because I literally go off the screen to make this happen. But I guess you can still see the background's color there once the video is finished. So that is something to keep in mind. So you would essentially be showing the audience the last frame of that video if you didn't have that one selected. But if I go show nothing when playback ends, I'll toggle the visibility of that one. It'll start playing. And then you'll see it disappears completely. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. We can go back to our properties. We can close the file when inactive. I don't really like to play with that one. I guess it is there. So potentially if you want to free up some resources on your computer, you could do that. But it's probably a better idea just to make sure that the video file just isn't massive, like it's appropriate for what you've got there. We also have a speed option. I'm going to put this open to the chat, and I think it's just stayed with me today, but that's fine. Do you watch and listen to things at one speed, or are you speeding things up? Are you slowing things down? I personally don't. There's been one time in my entire life when I've slowed something down, but generally I leave everything on one speed. But in this case, because this will be absolutely ridiculous, I'm going to make this 200%. And you'll see how quickly that has happened. That's, it's literally double speed. So again, you may or may not want to do that. For the most part, I probably wouldn't recommend you do that, but maybe you have a funny reason to do so. We can have that in there as well. One thing I do want to briefly touch on is that it's important that we think about our audio, because there is actually some, and I realize you guys won't be able to hear it because of the way I'm sharing my screen today, but if I click on this, over here in the audio mixer, you'll see that this actually does have some audio. You'll see that it spikes quite dramatically into the red, which is a bit of a problem, and it's probably literally the point at which I smack my head with my hand. But if I go into advanced audio properties, I've got some great options here, and I can reduce this, and maybe I'll start with -6 dB, because that's often the thing that I find is quite useful for videos that I've normalized previously. So now if I turn that off and turn it back on again, it's a little in the red, but I can probably live with that. So that's fine. Again, when it comes to videos, we go back into our advanced audio properties. We can change the balance. So you could pan this left or right or somewhere between those extremes. Again, for live streams, I wouldn't really recommend it. There's a sync offset. So if your video and your audio are out of sync, you can potentially negotiate that there. Again, I hope that isn't a problem for too many people these days with modern equipment, but maybe it could be. But the big thing here is the audio monitoring. So at the moment, this says monitor off, which basically means the stream would hear it. And again, not you guys today because of the way I'm sharing this second instance of OBS. But monitor only means that I would hear it and the stream wouldn't hear it. And then monitor and output means both I and the stream will hear it. So if I turn monitor and output on, gonna toggle the visibility of this. And that time, for the first time, I've actually heard that sound effect. So that's quite a nifty thing to do. You'll see too, and again, I don't know how obvious this is, but so you can see that I actually don't have that centered in the middle of the screen. So again, I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to transform. I'm going to go center to screen, which is Control D. And now that you'll see that the red bounding box of this is actually in touch with everything else, which is really, really cool. All right, so that's essentially the video option. And again, if we make a single scene, which is just video only, and again, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to add that media source back in. I'm going to go to add existing and grab that videos one. The only thing that's actually live on this scene is that video. So maybe I'm here, I'm talking, I'm introducing the show in scene one, and I'm like, watch this video. And I can click over here to play the video. I can click to a different scene or use a keyboard shortcut or a Stream Deck button and then continue on that way. And I guess the thing that you want to keep in mind is the things that are in your scenes are as important as the things you leave out of your scenes, because here you'll see the video plays, the audio plays, but like I don't have my microphone here. So if I was actually doing this live, I wouldn't be able to narrate this. And maybe if you're doing a reaction type of video, you'd want to come in and actually include your audio input capture device. So in this case, I'd come in here and I would add my broadcaster, give that the name, select it from the list, and I probably just want the stereo version for this today. And now you'll see that I've got the roadcaster audio here, and I've got the video audio down there. So in this case, I could actually come to the video only and say, this is me popping up on the screen. I hit my head with my own hands, and that's what happens. And both of those are there. Whereas if I didn't have this in here, the only thing you would hear would be the video. And sometimes that's kind of what you want. Like sometimes there'll be times when I'll throw to a promotional video and I don't want people to hear me muttering to myself between scenes as I'm trying to think about what I'm doing next. So the things you include in your scenes are as important as the things that you leave out. So, okay, so the other thing I do want to mention too, though, is we have this VLC video source option. This isn't a traditional. This doesn't come as default in OBS. It's only because I have VLC media player installed on my computer, but it gives me this extra source. But this is really cool because I can actually create a playlist of videos. And it's very similar to what we saw in the image slideshow. We can come down here, we can add a directory, we can add some files. In this case, I'll come and add a few different files. I should say too, the couple of files I'm going to use for this example, that there are different screen dimensions, like screen ratio. So this will probably look a little bit weird, but I'm okay with that. And then we've got the ability to loop the playlist or shuffle the playlist. You can do either those or neither of those. There's an audio track, subtitles enabled, which is interesting. I don't know that I've got those subtitles ready to go, but if you did, you could do that as well. And now, if I go and hit OK, again, this is because these are different screen ratios, because one's a vertical video, one's a horizontal video. I'm going to right click, I'm going to go transform, and I'm going to go fit to screen. And that'll put the vertical video in the middle of the screen. And eventually, and this doesn't go for too long, so I might just let it play in the background while I'm talking to you. It'll actually show me the second video, which in this case is just that facepalm video that I've been showing you all day. But again, I should mention too, and I think I showed this on a show recently, but this is the Rode Micro, wireless micro, this thing here that I've been playing with lately. But you'll see it's gone from one video to the other video, and then it's gone back because I had that loop option selected. So if you wanted to, you could make a playlist of a pre-recorded material. You could stream that out. You could turn that into its own standalone video. You can do all of the things there. Again, all of those considerations about the advanced audio, so adjusting the volume and the monitoring options, probably quite good to do. Again, you can see I'm in the red quite a bit. I'd probably take that down a bit as well. And I probably want to actually hear the output. So if I do that and I close, I can hear that audio. I realize you guys can't, but that's, just take my word for it. That's how that works. Okay, so I feel like I maybe have bitten off more than I can chew to try to fit all of this into 1 hour. But let me just briefly talk to you about some of the options that we have here as well. So we've got the display capture and the window capture. So the display capture and the window capture, they will actually capture, display capture captures an entire screen or monitor. A window capture will capture a specific program on your computer, like an actual window. And again, I'm going to do that classic thing that I do. I'm going to bring up a piece of audio software in the background, and hopefully that will load relatively quickly while I'm doing this. So now if I were to come down here and go Ads, Window Capture, I'm going to share some software called Analog Lab 4 with you. So I'm going to give that the name. I'm going to find the window from this drop down list. So here it's Analog Lab 4.exe. I click on that one and you can see that it's already sort of appearing on my screen. I could potentially also capture the audio. Again, I'm probably not going to worry about this too much for today because I've shown you this in other videos. But the thing about this is we can literally capture a single window on our computer and I can resize that to fill the space. I can do whatever I want there. Some pieces of software may actually consist of a number of different windows, and at that point you may be better off just sharing your entire screen. So that's something to try out and experiment with. Whereas if I actually go and remove this right now, and if I go to display capture, because I've got 4 different screens on my computer, they're all doing something related to the stream right now. But I'm just going to call this one clock and click OK. And it's going to ask me, you know, what capture method, and automatic works 90% of the time. So I'll leave it on that one. The display is the one that we actually want to share. So I've got 2 Philips monitors. One is vertical, one is horizontal. I'm using both of those for the stream. I've got the field monitor, which is the thing I'm going to share with you in a second, and I've also got the Elgato prompter. So I can capture any of these screens. But I'm going to go with the field monitor today, which is a field world monitor. It literally has a little clock on it so I can see how I'm going for time. And that was just something I threw together with a bit of HTML and JavaScript during the week, and I just sent it from OBS to that field monitor. In this case, I'm sort of capturing it again. But if I were to, I don't know, this is a very small monitor, so this will look absolutely ridiculous. But if I drag this software onto this monitor, you'll see that that's, you know, I can capture anything that I put onto that screen in this window. And again, all the things that apply previously, we can drag the corners, we can resize that to make it larger or smaller. We can hold down the Alt key to crop that if we wanted to. So those are basically the two main types of sharing your screen, and that can be really useful. And again, I'm literally doing this as part of the stream right now because, you know, normally I'd start off by here, and then I'd go to share the screen with some branding elements, and then I'd go full screen like this. And that's the same sort of thing. In this case, I'm using display capture, and it's capturing this entire window. But again, I can layer that around other elements. So if I do have those overlays, I can certainly work in that fashion as well. So we've got the audio capture. We spoke about that one briefly. Media source scenes. So you can actually put other scenes. You can nest scenes in OBS. And if I show you this one, we say, hey, I actually want to put the first scene into this scene. I can do that. It's everything that's appearing in that first scene will show up here. The great thing about this is you can resize it. So maybe you want to include that other scene, but maybe you want it to be a little bit smaller, or you want it in a different position of your screen. Again, we could sort of adjust the order of that where it appears. And there are all kinds of reasons that you might want to do that. Sometimes I will have a scene that is just promotional messages or just banners or just the chat. Sometimes I will have scenes that are just my camera, and then I use that camera source in a number of different ways in other scenes. So that can be really, really useful. I don't know that I've got a particularly great example for this one, but the browser source is kind of nifty. And basically all it does is it kind of brings in a HTML file. So this could be something live on the internet. It could be something that that is on a local file on your computer, so you can create your own HTML. And that's essentially what I did for this clock. Is like, this is just a HTML document with a little bit of JavaScript, and I've got it on my computer. I went and found that, and I put it there. But I guess the other thing that we can use this for is things like the comments. So if I click on here and the chat support says, hey, don't forget to like and subscribe, I've got that option there. And this little thing that brings in the chat is called a browser source. And in this case, I'm using something called Social Stream Ninja, which I think we've done an entire show on in the past. So you can probably find that in the archives on the YouTube channel. But the great thing about that is that we can sort of bring in anything. And if I go, I don't know, I'll pick something at random, the facilitator.com. I can maybe adjust the size and the width of this. There's some custom CSS. Again, you probably, if you're nerdy, you can play with that. Otherwise, just leave it alone. And we'll click OK. And there we go. We can see Said's website, thefacilitator.com. If I actually click on this and go interact, I can potentially actually click on things and go places. This is not always the way that I would personally share a website, by the way. I just wanted to give you a quick example. So this, I've accidentally clicked on something that is perfect for this, which is the free custom countdown. So you can literally select your options. You can copy a link. In fact, if I go back to interact, copy that link. And now if I go back in here and I paste that link and go OK, I'm going to get rid of the clock. I'm going to actually put in another color browser because it is quite dark here. So again, that color would be great. In fact, I think that is the color I used previously, but that's all right. So you'll see that I've copied and pasted that timer, the countdown timer from Said's website. So that's pretty much good to go there. So those are some of the things. I realize I probably haven't done all of those. I think I've done most of them though, so that's good, especially considering we were running a little bit late due to just some technical issues. But if you do want to learn more about OBS, a good place to start is the OBS Obsessed newsletter, which you can find over at johnlacey.com/OBS news, which I'm literally just putting in the chat right now. And let's click on this one here. So yes, if you want to go to johnlacey.com/OBS news, that should bring you up to the OBS Obsessed newsletter. And I am hoping to produce some more content there very, very soon. But I hope this was a useful overview of some of the sources that we have available to us. If you have any questions, let me know in the chat. I'd really love that. And thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I think I'm sitting on 670 subscribers on YouTube. So thank you for all your support. And the Learn live streaming live show will be back next week. I'm sort of alternating my shows in 2025. I don't really know what the topic's going to be just yet, but if you have anything that you're interested in, let me know in the chat, and I will talk to you again very, very soon.